One.
Okay, so my name is Joy, and I am doing a holiday speech on what Christmas means to me for my communications class. I am in front of my staff, or my coworkers, not staff, and I just hope that you guys enjoy it and use it as a tool to get to know me a little bit better and why it is that I love Christmas. So I have my computer set up over here it's labeled as Christmas traditions and what Christmas means to me. So I'll just swift through a few of those as I start. So as I start my speech, I want to ask you guys to just kind of look inside of yourselves and ask yourself what Christmas really means to you. Because Christmas means it's not about the presents to me, it's about a lot of other things. So as I start, I just want to make sure that you guys are asking yourselves and kind of reflecting on what Christmas means to you guys, okay? In the beginning, Christmas was started as a religious kind of holiday and eventually ended up working into a commercial thing as well. When I think about Christmas and when it started as a religious holiday, I remember back when I was a little girl and my mom was real big into going to church. So Christmas Eve, we always went to church Christmas Eve to that service, you know, whether it was the pastor doing a sermon or it was a Christmas production that the church had put on. And it was at a young age that I realized that I loved to do acting and things like that. So I started doing acting in front of an audience Christmas Eve as a child in Christmas productions. And that's where it started as my love for Christmas because it was my favorite thing to do. I loved to act. I loved to be in front of people. Go figure. And that is what started my love for Christmas. And as I got a little bit older, I continued to do those Christmas productions, and it was one way of getting my brothers who weren't going to church to come with us and to get them involved. And it was my way of being able to feel like my family was whole at that time, even though I was only 10 years old or 12 years old. You know, that was important for me. So that's where everything had started. To me, that's getting time together with your family is one of the most important things when it comes to Christmas. So the second thing is, as I said, is time. So Christmas, the time that is spent with your family, your loved ones, whether they're not blood related or not, that is the next most important thing to me, is the time that I'm spending with my family, my parents, my husband, my child, my 4.5-year-old daughter. You know, those are the things that I think of, that is what is important to me. It's about taking the time about putting up the Christmas tree with my daughter and seeing the excitement in her face when she's putting the ornaments on the tree. So as I got older, the one thing that I loved doing, this makes me laugh, the one thing that I loved to do when I got older was 2 days before Christmas, I would go and I would spend the night with my grandma. And that night, her and I would cut up 5 pounds of apples. We would peel, dice into small things, and just her and I would make apple dumplings. And they would sit for a day in this lovely awesomeness. And we would take them for Christmas. We would always have to take extras because my brothers wanted to take an entire pan themselves home afterwards. So 2 years ago, my grandma came out. Actually, not 2 years. Christmas of 2017, my grandma decided to come out one last time because she doesn't live here anymore, and spend one last Christmas here because she's getting too old to travel. So 2 days before Christmas, her and my mother came and stayed at my house, and we cut up the 5-pound bag of apples. And what made it even more special to me, I told myself I was going to cry.
Don't cry.
Was that my daughter was able to partake in that memory that I have cherished for so long. So again, I want to tell you that the time that you spend with your family, with your loved ones, no matter where they are, what they are, you know, that is what Christmas is really about. It's about spending that time. And that was probably one of the happiest moments that I've had in a long time at that time in my life. So, yeah.
So we're all gonna be expecting apple dumplings.
It just made me, having that moment made me realize and remember that having that time with my family is having the time and sharing the love that I had. So because I was able to give plenty, we had invited other people who didn't have anywhere to go, and I was able to share the love that I had used, that I had not used, but that I had with my grandmother, my daughter, and my mom, and I was able to share that with people who didn't necessarily have that on that day. So that was an important time for me. It was a tradition that I want to continue to go on and ingrain into my daughter, because, you know, you think about people and they're like, well, I don't know what to buy so-and-so this year, and, you know, that's not what it's about. It's not about what you're buying them. It's about, you know, how you make that person feel, and making sure that they know that you are loved, or that they are loved and you love them, and you cherish them and your time that you have with them. So finally, my third is tradition is what helps solidify to me what Christmas should be about. Tradition, the time you spend, the love and the family, you know, the going to church with your family on Christmas Eve and things like that. So last year I hosted Christmas for the first time at my house. My husband and let me rephrase, I was excited because I had always wanted to host Christmas, and this was the first time I'd ever gotten to have that chance. And my husband was super supportive, and so I went out. My dad wasn't able to put up Christmas decorations anymore, so he gave me all of the Christmas decorations that I remember as a child, and I was able to put them up in my house and have that feeling, that family, that memory, that tradition of these certain items that I would put up in my house. I was able to put it up in my home, and I was able to share that tradition with my daughter. When I was about, I would say, 6 years old, it was before we moved to Arizona from Illinois, my dad, or my mom and I, and my brothers and my cousins all decided is that Santa looks like my dad. And Santa put me in the front of the line, and I went and sat on his lap, and I told him, I said, Santa, you look like my dad. And he just laughed and went, ho, ho, ho. A couple years later, I realized that Santa was my dad. That was the first time my dad had ever played Santa. And my dad, for close to almost 20 years later, played Santa every year. He never got paid for it. He always volunteered for it. He did Shop with a Cop in Camp Verde. He allowed all of the county employees to bring their families to come take pictures with him. He would bleach his beard, he'd bleach his hair, he'd bleach his eyebrows, he'd wear white mascara. It's something that he did, and unfortunately it's not something that he can continue to do because of his medical situation. But this the fact that I have that memory and those pictures of the first time that I got to see my dad as Santa is what I go back to around Christmas time. I go back to the time, the love, the family, how it made me feel, the fact that I always got to help him bleach his hair, you know, and that's what I go back to when it comes to Christmas. I go back to how it made me feel, how happy I could see my dad. And, you know, you think about what people do now. People go to Target and Walmart and Kohl's and all of these places on Thanksgiving, and they allow themselves to get absorbed with what they think is important, getting this deal or getting that deal, but that's not what it's about. It's not about that. It's about making sure that you have those traditions, you have the time and that you spend with the family, the ones you love, and you can go back as far as going to the church service on Christmas Eve. So people wonder what happened to society to allow our children to become so wrapped up in the technology, and it's because they've taken the traditions, the memory, the time, the love, and they've replaced it with this technology that they're so upset with. So I just want to make sure and ask you guys, you know, just make sure to look inward when you're in Christmas this year, and just make sure that you're really defining what Christmas really means to you instead. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.